welcome to the Dugoscopy Studios here in Geneva. I am joined today by Francois Savary to discuss what is in store for the US. Francois, welcome.
Thank you.
So the US data is on a downturn. Are you expecting the US economy to pick up, or are you expecting a prolonged weakness continuing into 2015?
We believe that it is a short-term phenomenon. The weakness of the first quarter was a short-term phenomenon. For the last 3 years, we have seasonal development in the American economy, where the first quarter is very weak and then you have a recovery. We believe that we are going to go along the same path in the course of the next few quarters and that the recovery will continue in the US.
Great, so March was not a good month for employment data for the US, non-farm payrolls in particular, falling below expectations. What effect could this have on GDP data?
What is very important to notice is the fact that in April the numbers have improved again. So it means to us that the improvement in the labor market in the US is going along the ways we were expecting, and this is something that is crucial because if you have improving labor condition, you will have more income. More income means more consumption, and this consumption is going to feed into more growth, so GDP should improve.
Great, so the University of Michigan's consumer sentiment came in at 88.6 in May, down from 95.9 in April, and well below market expectations, so both current and future expectations declined while the inflation outlook rose. So will this negative data have an immediate effect on the US dollar, and what is currently in store for the US dollar?
I would say that what is striking about the figure you mentioned is the fact that on the one side you have a negative statistics, which is the consumer confidence, which is decreasing, but be careful, it is usually revised. This is the first estimates that was published, so this is on the one side the negative news. I would say the more supportive news is on the inflation front. What is key is that inflation expectations are rising again in the US. This is a key element because people were fearing deflation threat in the US a few months ago. It tends to prove that those fears were overstated, and to a certain extent this is key to decide what is going to happen with the Federal Reserve monetary policy. We believe with inflation increasing in the US there will be more weight on the Fed members to increase rate by September. Therefore, it means that with raising rates, it should support the US dollar. So the current weakness we have on the US dollar should be temporary, and we still believe that there is room for the dollar to appreciate by the end of the year towards the 105 level against the euro.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. It was a pleasure to have you back in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's all that we have time for today, but for further updates and interviews, do check out the Dugoscopy website. Goodbye for now.